So, it's a very, very, very special day. I want to be able to introduce this pod nicely because this marks a very special occasion for us. This is our very, very first. This is the Mindful Men podcast, where we aim to break social norms and we encourage you all to unlearn everything that you know as a man, especially a black man. But
everything, you know.
Everything. Unlearn it all so you can relearn new things and become a much better man, a much better person. So while I get into it, I want to introduce you to the people involved. I'm your host. I'm your guide. I'm the person that's gonna be the voice of the streets to the professional. My name's Hez, H-E-Z-Z. Very easy to spell. But really and truly, the real talent is this guy on my left. Now I'm going to give you like a boxing introduction here.
Cheers, mate.
Weighing in. I'm not even going to put your business out.
Don't do that. The diet hasn't started yet.
But no, this guy to my left, it's very pertinent to say that he's putting the time, the work, the effort, and the care into his profession. He is a registered, licensed therapist and counsellor.
Psychotherapist
and counsellor. See, you can't miss the details out. He's got a full resume.
The finer details are important, but thank you.
Exactly. He's also had a lot of experience dealing with the youths, tomorrow's children and tomorrow's adults. He's also had a rich history in helping women all over the place, be at one with their situations and come out of their situations, whether that's domestic abuse or whether that's internal abuse. He's helped a lot of people and saved a lot of lives. Even if that's just one life, it's still more than what a lot of us have done. So without any more, I want to introduce you to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr A2B Therapy himself, Anthony Bedwood, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. It's embarrassing me a bit, but I don't claim to have saved any lives, but if I can help, I will do. And I hope that I have helped many over the years. So,
ladies and gentlemen, he's been humble. That's the sign of a real hero. They don't all wear capes.
No. But yeah, it's we can only try. And I guess we're trying to aim to re-encourage the learning of not how to be a man, but just have certain conversations and rethink certain things that you may have thought or may have learned over the years. I can't tell anybody to do anything, I can only encourage and try and steer people in the right direction, the same way, I made a few changes for myself a few years ago when I try and stay on a rightish path, but nobody's perfect. We can only do what is right for you at the time. But, if you can hear what others are saying and learn from what others are doing, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep, I second that. And at the same time, you can only learn what you can in the environment that you have been brought up in. But at the same time, every time you change that environment, it's very easy to hold on to what you've always known. But if you can let go of that in some instances so that you can learn new things and become more cultured, I guess in that way, we're on the path to being, the best versions of ourselves that we can be because we've allowed ourselves to learn and be better. So with that said, we might as well get into our main point of discussion. So a lot of you probably have watched this show on Netflix, Adolescence. It follows the chronicle of a young boy who has succumbed to what we know as the incel culture, and absorbed a lot of the content surrounding misogyny and acted on impulse based on those parts of content. It's caused quite a stir. Some people might say that it's kind of the first step in challenging misogyny in young men. there's some people that disagree with that, but I guess we'll get into that at some point. As a therapist yourself, and especially in one of the scenes in there, obviously there's no spoiler alert because this has been out for ages. There is a scene there where they actually have the child therapist in the room while he's actually serving time.
Yeah.
How was that for you as a watch?
Do you know what? I feel it's a good thing to be putting these kinds of things on TV anyway. In general, I feel that parents and young people who aren't in that world, who may be just on the cusp of it, i.e. they will be still in the online world, but they may not go to prison, and parents whose children who haven't been arrested. So you may not know how these things go. And I feel it was extremely close in terms of how they did. And as a therapist working with certain types of young people with behavioural issues, they can be extremely aggressive. And there is no training for how to deal with certain levels of aggression, no matter what institution you have. You don't know until you're in that moment how you're going to feel about being shouted at or being shown that certain aggression, especially when you're in a job that is essentially trying to help the other person communicate. That therapist won't be there to join in holds if that young person goes too far.
Right.
Like all the other staff will be trained how to hold. She wouldn't have been trained. You've just kind of just got to hold it together until the session's over, or you decide that it's too much for you. And I would suggest that any therapist obviously watches it, but you decide before you go into that situation whether you're ready for it or not. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it, because not everybody's ready to be able to help young people like that. Like my background is young people, so when I've seen it, for me it was quite normal seeing those levels of aggression. And I'm restraint trained anyway. I don't restrain anymore, but I know how to if I need to. But it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, being a psychotherapist we can't help everybody. Every situation is going to be different. So you have to know what situations you're going into. So reading the background of this young person before you go into that is a good step. And unfortunately, I feel you've got to know before you go in there, you may not make a difference to this young person, or it may take years.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be one session where you're going to build a connection and that's it. It's going to take a while. Have you got that time to be able to do that? If so, go for it.
Do you make that a priority? Like, do you make the person that you're talking to a priority in those situations, or is there an element of trying to extract information from them for the authorities to kind of better understand rehabilitation and things like that?
I guess it depends on who's hired you. My assumption is because it is the police, they would have put that on. Because of his age, he would have been told that he needs some kind of therapeutic intervention.
Yeah.
Now, whoever's hired you and what they're asking you behind the scenes, I don't know. Because sometimes you don't have to... Basically, if me and you sit down, I'm not to tell anybody else unless you're breaking the law or doing anything.
Is that the client privilege?
Yeah, confidentiality.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not meant to go and talk about the young person, but there'll be certain bits where they need to learn stuff about this young person, what they may not know.
Right.
And I may be the closest person to be able to find that out for them. But this will be something that is discussed before going in.
So, okay. So if they, in this particular situation, right, the kid is already locked up. It's not like, you know, they're not locked up, or this, you know, their parents, or they've sought out, you know, the advice from a psychologist or from a therapist. In this particular situation where the crime's been done and he's in prison, if you are sent in there to kind of help that person, you know, come to terms with what they've done and all the rest of it, is there any part of that where you're kind of forced to talk about, you know, the real violent elements, and then you have to report it back? So is there anything that could break that privilege or that confidentiality?
It depends on what the client would want to say. But obviously, before the sessions, you would say, you know, if you told me X, Y, and Z, or there's still murders that aren't been sorted yet, those kind of things, or you've left money X, Y, and Z that police are still.
But no matter the scenario, that person, so in this instance, the kid can just say, no, I don't want anything discussed with the authorities, otherwise I'm not talking. Fair enough. But that's useful to know, because I guess in some instances, like when, you know, the Lord does try and, you know, do their tricks and whatever.
At the end of the day, you can't force somebody into therapy if they're not ready to have therapy.
True.
You know, you've got a partner at home, I think you should go to a therapist, go talk about it. So you may be right, but until that person's ready to talk about it, there's no magic that I can make a client start talking. It's when they're ready to start opening up and talking. But what you have to hope is that the young person realises he's up S Street right now, he's in a bit of trouble, and talking about stuff may help him long term.
Okay, to extend this a little bit, would there be a point where you would extend some of that conversation to the parents? Because obviously they've had to deal with a level of trauma, knowing that their child has done something that they didn't think that they were capable of. Like, would you at any point invite them into the room to have a discussion, or would you talk to them bit by bit, or is it all dependent on who and what pays for what?
It is dependent. It is circumstantial. It is very different. Every case is different.
Yeah.
Generally, I'd probably not have them in the same room together, because, like you said, the trauma of what their son had done is probably going to be a different thing to what he's going through.
Yeah.
He's going through his own trauma.
And I guess the energy would show in the room, right?
Yeah.
Which will kind of knock everything off.
Would it be good for the parents to have therapy? Yes.
Yeah.
Whether they go and do that. But again, it's like, can you afford it? If you can, you should go look into that, because what's happened, your child has killed somebody. That is a very big thing. And what you have to deal with that now is you are a parent of a murderer.
Yeah.
You know, there is no ifs or buts about it. And how you are perceived from that, people will pass judgment. They will. And you may need support through that next step.
So it's kind of learning how to deal with that going forward.
Well, you can't change, unfortunately. Because if you can change, you would make it so he didn't murder her.
Yeah.
You know, if we are making it changes, but we can't change what's happened. People will pass judgment on you for certain things happening in life. And like I said, you may need support through that, how to navigate it, because there was a moment where, if I remember correctly, the dad was getting they put graffiti on the van.
Yeah.
And some other bits and bobs was happening to him. And then he actually ran down one of the kids when he went to the DIY store.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me in that moment, I'm obviously not right there and then, you need help. But when you've watched that, any parent probably would have felt the same way in that situation. I'm not saying he was right or wrong, but there's certainly a better way to deal with that situation. And somebody probably could have helped him manage those types of situations moving forward.
Kind of doing the work before it gets peak kind of thing.
Because it got peak. It's going to get peak.
Yeah.
And obviously, I can't remember if they gave the young person a sentence, but we can imagine it's a pretty long one.
Yeah.
I remember him saying he's going to go guilty now because he chose not to. So there's going to be all that you have to manage. And as a parent, one of the things is my child's lied to me. Even if you know, I've got no kids, but sometimes as a parent, I'm sure you know when your child is lying to you. No matter what, how much you want to believe them, in your heart of hearts, you just know.
Yeah. Or sometimes you don't. Like you get them parents that are very obtuse when it comes to their when it comes to their kids, and they're just like, oh well, actually, my kid's never going to be capable of that. But your kid is literally just beat up another child over a toy, and
done
you
the
never thought
most.
they were done the most, and you never thought they were capable. Like, we see that a lot.
So then you're going to now have to navigate through my child has lied to me. Not only has he just lied to me, but lied to me in one of the worst ways ever. You've actually murdered somebody.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to tell me the truth. Now you have to decide, how am I going to support you moving forward? How am I going to support my family who are going through this on the outside? How am I going to support you as my child moving forward? These are all decisions that need to be made. And there's nobody who can tell you that it's right to not go and see him again or support him through the trial, or it's right to go. That's a decision that you've got to make for yourself. Because everybody's going to have a different opinion on it. You know, the family of who it happened to are going to have a totally different opinion to the family who was not involved but it happened with.
Yeah.
Two totally different opinions. But people on the outside are also going to have different opinions of this, especially if they were friends to her or him.
And they're going to air it. You're going to start seeing a change in energy of people. You're going to see the judgment call come through, and that's all going to feel very new to you. All right, well, to kind of put us a little bit on track with this, I want to kind of start from the foundations. And what I mean by that is the big word of the day, misogyny. Understanding how that breached a child's mind in the first place, let alone, a young boy. But given what you've seen out there with a lot of the talk and a lot of the chatter, a lot of the red pill kind of conversation where, you're getting a lot of guys out there that are speaking from a place of, well, we've never really had any meaningful relationships or connections. We just want to be validated and feel good enough. So now we've made a whole new set of rules that put women in a box so that we can, keep control and keep tabs and get what we want by any means necessary. How important is that kind of content when we're looking at situations like these?
It's super important. And I feel that as men, we have to be so careful who we listen to. As young men, we have to be so careful who we're deciding to watch, who we're deciding to call role models, and who's doing what. Because some people spout a lot of negativity, even if they have moments of where they're correct. But some people, the whole message is quite negative and derogatory, and it can come across the wrong way.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I would recommend that everybody goes and learns what that word actually means. I feel
facts.
there's people out here who go around saying it, you're a misogynist, or and they don't actually know what that term means.
Misogyny, gaslight, and there's another one out there that is just out of the realms.
Terms, and a lot of people, they don't know what these words mean.
No, they don't.
They just say it because, like you say, it's a new buzzword. It sounds right.
Yeah.
It goes with what's going on right now. It fits it. But in reality, they don't know. I know pagan was one of them back in the day. People used to go around calling people pagans, and they don't really know what it means. It just sounds good.
Yeah. Or sounds horrible.
Yeah,
and it has a stain. And this is the thing. It's like when we understand misogyny, we have to kind of understand where it kind of comes from and how things like patriarchy play a part into misogyny, and having these very typecasted gender roles, and, like I said earlier, putting essentially women in a box and forcefully doing so, and then sticking a tag on and saying tradition. Now, some people do tradition well where it serves all parties, and the people that don't understand it, they reserve judgments for it. But then some people do tradition in the worst way possible because they just never really understood what it was and never really had a positive example of that.
Whose tradition? I grew up in a 2.4 family. So my tradition is very different to a lot of people's traditions out there.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, my mum, she don't drive. Never drove. She's in her 60s. Never drove.
Yeah.
Don't need to. My dad's probably cooked twice in the last however many years.
Yeah.
But he's never gone hungry, and my mum's never needed a lift.
Yeah.
But you told that to certain people, they're not having it.
Yeah.
What do you mean your mum cooks all the time? No issues. My mum loves to cook. My dad's the driver. It works for them.
Yeah.
But like I say, if you tell that to the wrong person in this generation, they're not hearing it.
I think it's very important that you said this generation.
Yeah, definitely. It works for them.
Yeah.
You know, it may not work for people right now, but maybe some old school traditions right now would help people moving forward.
I mean, potentially there is some good in certain traditions when it comes to you figuring out what's right for you, being open to it all. I mean, I think why I put some emphasis on saying, you know, this generation is because it seems like this generation has misunderstood a fair few things when it comes to, you know, equality and understanding roles and all the rest of it. Like, so say, for example, feminism. Feminism, by definition, is the equality of all sexes, the ability to exercise your choice no matter what your gender is. Because obviously there was an oppression on women. So, you know, voting and stuff like that, you know, you can't vote because you're a woman. You can't serve in the army because you're a woman. You can't, you know, like you said with the driving thing, can't drive because you're a woman. So therefore, we're just not going to give you any avenues for you to be able to learn that and be able to do it. And we're just going to handle all of that. When really, because the world is progressing, it's very essential that everybody has whatever they want in their toolbox and be able to exercise that choice and choose and not be judged for that choice, if that makes any sense.
Does.
So it's like I said with the driving, like people would judge your mother, for example, and say, well, oh, she's setting people back. However, you know, it's not the done thing. Like how, like your dad's probably like making her not drive and all. Force.
Actually crazy.
But really, your mother has no desire. But if she had the option to do so, if she wanted to, she could take that.
I hear that.
Do you know what I mean?
If there's a woman out there who wants to do all my driving moving forward, I've got no problems, you know. Kicking back and just saying, isn't it?
You know what? This is the first pod. I'm not going to put your business out there. By episode 5, camera on me, I will be putting his business out there. There will be a hotline. I'm telling you now.
Cheers, mate.
But no, back to, you know, the premise of misogyny. So in your experience, and I know I asked you this question a lot, but you are the expert. In your experience, especially dealing with youth and everything like that, have you at any point seen the signs in a child where they're starting to look like they feel alone and they're looking for validation wherever they could grab it, and then seeing what happens on the other side of that?
100%. You can spot it early. Just how the young person manages themselves, how they interact with their parents, with staff at the school, with their peers. You can spot certain things early. And obviously without going into much of people's business, but some of the young people I've worked with, you can tell that extra support is needed, whether that's therapeutically, whether that's mentoring, whether that's... But I feel I can safely say, unfortunately, that's a lot of young men in this generation could use that kind of guidance.
Yeah.
And that's not me having a go at anybody. That's just me being real in terms of the young men that I see growing up in this day and age of today. You know, they would prefer to sit in their rooms on the computer and have a online presence and talk to people more online than they would do face to face.
But do you think that's fear driven, given that, you know, they're very new to the world itself? So, you know, it's safe to talk to everybody, like from your bedroom. It's safe to text on your phone and there'd be no recourse because, you know, they already feel like they're on an island anyway.
It's only safe if you've been taught how to conduct yourself properly and manage certain things. I remember a few years ago we had a young person who was being groomed online, you know, and it happens more than what parents realise. And it's all these things like, I don't want to put stuff on blast, but there's some big games that parents allow their young people to go on with chat rooms, and nobody is managing who's on the other side. Yeah, you might be able to see that your child's conducting themselves properly, but then when somebody else runs across the screen with a suspect name that you might not know, and then before you know it, they're talking to a young person, trying to get them to do and say certain things. Nobody's managing that from, unfortunately.
It's because it is almost, unless you tell them that they can't go on it, then it's almost impossible to manage. Because like you said, all it takes is one random user to just pass along the screen. Like they could be playing a game like, you know, no adverts, but Roblox, for example. And it could be all right. They could be doing Adopt Me with all their pets and stuff like that. And then next thing you know, this naked avatar runs across the, you know what I mean?
It's not even just, it's mad. It's not even just online games either. I remember being at work one time and the young person was watching YouTube. Fine.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
Halfway through the YouTube, it switched to something different. Like, hold on, what's this? And if you're not monitoring and managing that, you could have left your child upstairs. You're doing whatever downstairs for 2 hours. Before you know it, 15 minutes into what you've left them watching, now they're watching some crazy stuff.
There was something that was actually out there that was like that, where this scary looking Saw type image was appearing in the middle of Peppa Pig, telling people to, you know, go steal cookies or go kick your friend in the face and stuff like that. And kids are just wilding out doing it.
And the thing is, if you've not seen that for yourself,
you would never
believe it.
It's true, you wouldn't.
Why is your child now having nightmares or punching up people? Because you have to see it to understand. And this is what I mean in terms of managing what our young people are watching. If they're past a certain age, do they know the rules and guidelines of being on certain things? Or if they are even older, 16, 17, 18, and you can't really manage as much, but try and encourage them to watch positive people then, if that is the case. Try and steer them in the right direction of what they are, what using their spare time to. And if not, sit down and talk to them about stuff.
I mean, from first-hand experience, that is quite difficult if you don't set it up foundationally. And unfortunately, there's a lot of parents that...
It's got to start from young.
They don't start that from young. You're like, there is a lot of parents that... And I see it all the time, and I don't judge it for 1 second, because it must be difficult, where the idea of having a child is great. The child comes, and the way that their life changes... It hits them like a bus. Like they're trying their hardest to, you know, just deal with life, keep a child alive for years and whatever. They tend to fall into certain things that, you know, either, you know, lull the child or to, you know, distract them, you know, put an iPad in front of them and just leave it so they can actually clean the house. Like there's all those little things that in the moment, yes, it's giving you the space to do something that is also essential. Like I'm not going to be, you know, taking a dump on people that have to do this kind of stuff. Like it's very essential. You have to do it, but then you've got a screaming child that needs you and is reliant on you. And here's this shiny screen that is keeping them locked in. I can see why people don't get it right foundationally.
It's quite sad, but unfortunately that the easy choice isn't always the best choice. And you can see long-term in young people who have that interaction with their elders. I won't just say parents, because sometimes, unfortunately,
they don't
different. You know, who's had those interactions from young. And sometimes, like you said, the iPad is the easiest choice, but you've got to know long term, it may not do you any favors when it comes to you asking your child to do something for you and they tell you no, or you know, all these things. So sometimes it's better, even though more difficult, to put that hard work in earlier.
It is more difficult.
So then when they do get to certain ages, when you ask them, who's your role model, or can you do X, Y, and Z for me? The response isn't no. Or in worse ways, our young people talk to their elders today.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse if we don't put in that hard work earlier. Yeah, and sometimes I guess it can be easier for us to say that here, but if that means you as a parent have to find them role models, i.e. go put them in, I know AKA still do lots of youth centres, still do take the young people to the peak districts during the summer. If you've got to go sign your young person up
Yes.
to be around
No, I
like-minded staff members who you know are going to be a positive influence on them, and that means you've got to make a little sacrifice, that may be what you have to do then. Make that sacrifice. Maybe you don't go on a trip at the weekend
Yeah.
and you save the money and bring them somewhere. And like I said, to be around certain staff members who are going to make a positive impact may cost a bit of money. You know, I was in a school not too long ago, talking to the head of year, and you know, we talk quite candidly, honestly, and we don't have staff members to be able to deal with certain behaviours of certain young people. And that is we're talking about a school.
Yeah, which kind of makes it a bit counterproductive, and it's almost like people get left out. You know what I mean? Cast aside, put in a corner while we deal with the not so troublesome normal children, while we let these ones kind of fight amongst themselves. And it, I guess, from a long-term perspective, and with us talking about getting it right from early, that's the kind of thing that sets them up for much harsher realities in the future. Funny that you should say that, right? And we shouldn't really be getting our references from people like D Block Europe, but they said something very interesting on a radio show. They was describing, right, isolation like solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, it sounded funny, and obviously people was just like, what are you talking about? You're literally just in isolation in class. Like, there was still people around. You could still have lunch. Like, it's not like prison. But if you're a kid and that is your reality all the time, and then you get to an adult, you get into kind of nefarious behavior, you get put in that kind of situation, you're not seeing the differences between the two.
It's just a room, innit? That you've been cast aside into.
Yeah.
Because you can't behave yourself. Where do you go when you're as an adult when you can't behave yourself? In a room, either by yourself or with other people who can't behave themselves.
Yeah.
So I do see the similarities, especially when you do go into schools. There are lots of different rooms, and obviously they've got different names now. They're packaged different there.
Yeah.
You know, well-being rooms, and these places are needed at times for the young people to just regulate. But I feel that certain young people need to be taught how to regulate properly, and especially, again, young men need to be taught how to emotionally regulate properly.
Yep.
I learned that from my dad from quite a young age, and luckily for me, I've made a career out of it now. But not everybody is able to do that. My hope is that I can pass on those skills to other young men to be able to do that. I won't be able to help everybody, but I know there's people that we've seen in our years of growing up or whatever, you just know who don't know how to emotionally regulate.
Yeah.
You can just spot it. So now imagine they've gone on and have kids, and then these people haven't taught their young people to emotionally regulate.
Yeah, it's true.
And there's more, unfortunately, who can't emotionally regulate who can.
Do you, and I know it's going to put you on the spot because we might have to say something that we probably don't really want to say, but do you genuinely think that a man can learn how to emotionally regulate directly from a woman, or does it have to be from a positive male influence?
Oh, do you know, I read a book that was called Mama Can't Raise No Man. And, you know, I don't want to be disrespectful to any single mothers who are raising men, who have raised men.
We appreciate you. I was raised by a single mother, and she did a great job.
But I just feel there's certain things that you can't be taught by a woman. You can't. And there needs to be a man to be able to show you how to navigate certain bits of life.
I agree.
Or you learn by yourself. Not by yourself, so you learn from your peers.
I agree.
And if you've surrounded yourself around peers that aren't right for you, again, you're learning from somebody that isn't showing you the right way for you. Because there are different ways for a man to be a man. I'm different to a lot of people. You're different to a lot of people. We're not all going to be able to manage it the same way. You have to do what's right for you.
Yeah.
But if you're now, imagine you're learning from the wrong person who's not they're telling you stuff what's good for them.
Yeah.
Not for you.
Yeah.
So when you gone home and thought, that didn't feel right, and you know when something don't feel right, it don't sit well with you. You know, there's been many a times growing up where I know that I've done stuff and it's like, that don't sit right with me, you know. It don't. And sometimes if you're not ready to have that accountability conversation with yourself, and a lot of people in general aren't, changes won't come until something majorly wrong happens where there's no choice now but for your life to change.
Yeah. And sometimes that is almost too late.
For some people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For some people, unfortunately, we learn things too late.
Yeah.
Some people get lucky with it and life has treated them well and they've not had to go through certain things. But generally, most people have been through something from their years of life and experienced something what hasn't gone right for them generally. And if you've not surrounded yourself with the right people or the right environment, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to get there.
It can be. But I guess a more kind of like positive example of kind of having something drastically happen because my mother raised me as a single parent. And it takes me being an adult to kind of look back and see some of the actions that she put in place and the men that she surrounded me with, which, to be fair, she probably had a lot of reasons to hate my father and she had a lot of reasons to dislike him, and it could have they probably had a really toxic relationship. But what she did a great job of is not tarring all men in her life with that, or noticing the men that actually were there to provide positive experiences, were there to, you know, rule with a firm but fair hand, and then be able to kind of instill values. So, like, I was around my uncle a lot. Like, my uncle is probably the absolute opposite to any kind of street person whatsoever. He knew how to emotionally regulate. He had a very clear vision of where he wanted his life to be. He lived in a nice house. He would protect every woman that was around him, family or none, were comfortable and safe around him. And it was through people like him that I kind of learned how to, you know, be around women, be around people, like understand exactly how, you know, not to stir up certain things or not to let, you know, the inner nature of a man scream out in times to protect myself. And like I said, to emotionally regulate, know exactly where to put that emotion and how to use that emotion for a better outcome. And I guess in some ways, a lot of single parent homes are kind of missing that, where, you know, the split hasn't been that great, or, you know, the person's had the child and it's not really what they wanted. And, you know, they've gone their separate ways. She hates men, don't trust men. So therefore, I'm just going to raise you how I think you should be raised based on my trauma and my hurt. Like, there was something that August Alsina said once where he said, mother was exposing us to life as she knew it. So we all went through it. And that kind of resonates with that situation where, depending on the experience that your mother's gone through and how she's dealt with that experience, can reflect on how she attempts to raise you as a human, let alone a boy turning into a man.
Do you think that, really a strange question in terms of, do you think she ever really liked him in the get-go? Like, if you now hate somebody because they've chosen to not be with you for whatever, did you really like them in the beginning?
I mean, you could have. Like, and this is the other thing. Like, and once again, something that I saw somewhere. I think it might have been on a Pop the Balloon, funny enough. So, you know how weird that show can get. Like, people coming up with all kinds of weird excuses and some of the maddest things that they come out with. But this guy had kind of asked the woman, what experience did you have with your ex that changed you for the positive or helped you learn something that you've been able to take outside of that relationship to make you a better person?
Great question.
And I thought, for such like a toxic show, that's a really, really, like, no one would ever think to ask that, but it makes all the sense in the world. Like, it not only kind of shows whether you've healed or not, but it also kind of lets you know how much you've grown as a person as well, based on your past experiences, whether they're negative or positive. And funny enough, almost expected, she says, my child.
Not really answering the question.
Not really answering the question, and also being somewhat deflecting it. And he popped her a balloon and she's like, well, why? It's like, well, at the end of the day, like, it could be something real small. So in my example, like, my ex taught me how to drive. Like, and as a result of that, like, we used to go places. She taught me how to drive. I passed my test. Everything was cool. We managed to get around the place. And since then, you know, that's something that has helped improve my life. That is a very surface level thing. And no matter what happened between me and my ex, I've walked away from that knowing how to drive. And that is an essential thing for life. And he was like, well, I'm just surprised that even if your relationship ended badly, even the bad, what did that bad situation teach you about your own self-worth that made something change or switch so you could take that into other things? Do you know what I mean?
100%. And I just feel that, since we're on the relationship topic, I feel that a lot of people, I'll keep this general, a lot of people don't know when something is good.
Yeah.
And when they're being treated a certain way, they don't understand it for what it is of being good, because it may not have the monetary value of what dating expects to be or what a relationship should be. But again, it's who are you learning that from?
Yeah.
The influencers who are faking everything until they make it or whatever. Are they listening to the people who've been together for years?
Yeah.
Probably not, because they're not on Instagram like that.
No, that's true.
You know? So I do feel in this generation, some people don't realise what a good thing is.
Yeah.
Until it's maybe too late. I don't want to. Obviously, everybody has an opportunity and a chance, but I do feel a lot of people let good things pass because they don't know what a good thing is.
Now that kind of brings us back to where we were with adolescence and you know, learning from other people that we find inspiration because we've never had that before. Like this kid probably watching all these guys tell him that, you know, you should get a woman to do this, or if you can't, you know, get sex, then you need to go and just grab it and get it from him. Or if they don't play ball, then, you know, beat her up or those kind of things. Like, he's looking at people that look like they're at success. The aesthetic is there. They are very loud and wrong, but they don't know what wrong is. So as a result, you know, they don't know what good looks like. So then after not knowing what good looks like, they've taken good from that, reflected that on their situation. Like, I'm hopeless. Like, nobody respects me. Nobody sees me. But this person that I'm watching here, everybody sees them. I want to be like them. Or I want to take this example. Or even if they tell a joke that even refers to violence towards a woman, that's been taken seriously because it's in line with all the other controlling things that have been put in place with that content. So then you then end up creating a monster, somebody that doesn't really respect the sanctity of life, someone that doesn't understand where women actually play a crucial part in life. Even how he there's a disconnect in how he probably looks at his mother versus how he looks at the girl that is in, you know, row B in his classroom. Well,
I've always thought if you could be disrespectful to your own mother, you can be disrespectful to any woman on the planet. And there are a lot of people who will put their hands on their own mother. They will raise their voice. They will do certain things. So, unfortunately, a lot of things don't surprise me when you see certain things from what happened from young. You know, I know if I was to ever put my hands on my mum when I was younger, that would have been stamped out from day dot. Obviously, I would never do that. I would never hit a woman. But there are certain things that aren't dealt with early on enough.
It's true.
Or people don't take it for the seriousness of what it actually is. And then they want something done about it, unfortunately, when it's too late.
Yeah.
And that could be police intervention, removal from the home, lots of different things. And sometimes it's too late by then if we dealt with it from the get-go. And certainly in certain communities, decisions have to be made. And sometimes, like I said before, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice in terms of, I might need to get Hez in as a mentor for my son. But that means I've got to pay for it.
Yeah.
I can't afford it, which means maybe I don't buy a pair of trainers this month or next month and save for that support.
Yeah.
Or go and source it. And that means I've got to take a sacrifice because that's my child. I can't expect the government and the school to be paying more than I'm willing to pay. And I feel sometimes we have to make that sacrifice.
Now stay right there, because that actually goes perfectly into where I was going to go next. So the government did say that they are going to start airing this in schools to try and take that first step to battling misogyny at that level with kids. What's your general feelings about that? Do you think that is a great first step? Do you have any reservations towards it?
No, I don't have no reservations towards it. I feel it's a good thing. I feel young people need to see this is what happens when you choose to have role models who are steering you down the wrong path. And if we can try and change that, it's only a positive thing. If we can stop this from happening in real life somewhere around the world, it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
But I feel we have to do more as a community, as a people, because I always say it takes a village to raise a child. We have to do more. There has to be more positive role models willing to go into schools.
Yeah.
And if that means more people need to get educated, so obviously for me, it was a bit different. My circumstances were extremely different to the average. I've got no kids. Some people may have a family to look after, so it's extremely difficult for you to just decide, I'm going to change my career and drop everything and go do that. I'm not saying that. But maybe we can encourage our young people from earlier to continue to go down the education route.
Yeah.
We can only try.
We can. I mean, I'm with you in a sense to say that them putting it into schools is never going to be a bad thing. My only reservation is that this is heavily weighted on the perspective of the young boy and the consequences of the actions. And a lot is kind of missing from the part that creates these animals, addressing almost the root cause into why this child sought solace in content that really he shouldn't have been absorbing. There are parents that play a part in that. There's also, and it sounds nuts, but young girls.
100%. You're talking about schools, though.
Yeah.
Bring this into schools, and this segues into so many different learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Because there was a part of it where the girl was bullying him online.
Exactly.
So there you go. There's one segue, online bullying. Another segue, how to conduct yourself online. What to do when you are being bullied online. Who do I go and talk to about these things? There's lots of different segues where you can go with it.
Yeah.
Did they say an age? Are they trying to just keep it around that age, or are they going to go to younger as well?
That part I don't know. I'll probably have to do some research into that. But no, they didn't say a specific age. But you are right that it does break off into different sections. And yes, it will help other complementing parts. But in relation to misogyny and kind of misogyny causing misandrous behavior, and then that circle and that loop that comes with it. I mean, obviously we don't have a female perspective here, but as males, we've been in situations and we've seen situations where women girls as a collective can do things to kind of change the path of your innocence, or more to the point, make you almost act in ways to appear older or be jaded based on things that, say, for example, young girls have done in the collective. So if they all gather around one time at lunch and there's all you and your boys and whatever, you're playing football, and the girls will be like, yeah, we all fancy this one guy. Mm-hmm. And you're getting to that age where, you know, hormones are running around, like you kind of want to be a little bit desired, but then you're kind of like left on the shelf. You walk home feeling dud around it. Like, how is a person supposed to feel, and how are they supposed to regulate that feeling so that therefore it doesn't manifest itself into certain actions?
It's a tough one.
It is, isn't it?
The thing is, though, so
it is an open question.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The thing is, like, I've got a nephew who's 17 now, and I always try and talk to him about women, talk to him about consent, talk to him about...
That's important, by the way, consent.
What's right and wrong, how to manage rejection. And then...
We didn't learn that.
We didn't learn that.
We didn't learn that. We just had to hold it. that's what it was. We just had to hold it.
You just had to hold it.
Yeah.
But do you think he sits there and talks how we're talking now about these things? He doesn't... He's not ready for that. But that doesn't stop me from having these conversations, because I need him to know when he is ready, I'm here.
Foundationally.
So something will happen and it will just go a flashback. Oh, uncle tried to talk to me about this.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go and talk to my uncle about it. And this is what I tell him. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything. Whether you're embarrassed about it, it doesn't matter. Come to me and we will sit down and talk about it. Whether that's right now, this second, or whether that's in a month's time, 2 years, he now knows. And I feel that's what people need to be doing with their young. Whether that's your cousin, whether that's your brother, whoever, nephew, niece, whoever, be available for people to have these conversations with.
Yep.
And if it can't be a right now, let me get back to you. And make sure you get back to them. Because it is difficult, because like you said, right now, young people are parenting young people who are listening to people with negative connotations, who are then passing it around to their other young. So that's... Who comes up with the idea that you should go stab a 14-year-old girl? Who comes up with that?
They don't.
This is what...
Someone's showing them.
Someone's showing them. This is what they're being taught online, and it's not right. So, again, we as people, we've got to be... We've got to do something different. We've got to put ourselves out there for people to see. And, you know, my hope is that people see us talking, people hear us on the radio, and encourage their young to listen to us.
Yeah, I mean...
Why not?
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Like, we are trying to do a much more... It doesn't always have to be kind of like positive, like all singing and dancing, we're all humming and, you know what I mean? Like,
we're not perfect.
We're not perfect, but we do understand that we do have a responsibility as adults and people that actually influence the younger generation, or people that are looking at what we've managed to achieve and thinking, how did we get here? We kind of owe them a little bit of grace to say, you know what, this is how we did it, but also this is probably what you want to kind of stay away from, because there's real like consequences to that. And I think that's what my real problem is with, you know, certain aspects of, you know, social media and certain levels of red pill content. Like, the message is from people that have not managed to manage their own trauma. And as a result of that, they have created a whole new set of rules, picked on the almost emotionally vulnerable people that are just as skewed as they are, but from the opposite sex to kind of pick on, and then make that loud enough to generalize a whole population. Like, it's people being, like, it's being very loud, very wrong from 5-6 people, but because they influence so many, you tend to think that actually everybody thinks like that, and they really don't.
I do feel that they must feel that people must be right because they've got a million subscribers, they've got 500,000 views on one platform,
Yeah.
they've got views on another platform, and it's like, but you're actually listening to what they're saying. On one hand, certain ones do talk a lot of positiveness mixed in. So I get where you can be fooled.
Yeah.
But the whole premise of what they are saying is extremely negative, and they're using people to become bigger and buy another Lambo. Like me and Hez buy a Lambo, and then no, not really.
Yeah,
No,
it's true.
I'm joking.
Yeah,
but because of the sheer numbers of followers, it's like bloody hell. The bit of positivity that you can hear and see gets mixed in, and before you know it, it's like it's not even there. It's not even on your timeline anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's one of them.
it's one of them.
But yeah, in closing, I do implore people that do have children and have an interest in kind of what, the fallout of this type of, content can look like in our children. I do implore you to kind of look at the film. And I would say if you are going to watch it, don't watch it like a normal Netflix series, because I'll be honest with you, when I watched it for the first time, I must have fell asleep about 3 times. You know them ones like when people gas a TV show to you and you're just like, what is this foolishness? Like this don't make sense, that don't make sense. But then when you kind of look at the overarching message and you start to see it in a much more realistic expectation, you then understand where they are actually trying to draw the correlation with a multitude of things that have happened in real life. Because that's another thing. People try to say it was one person, they pulled somebody's card, and really it's actually about a whole bunch of people that have done this. So it's a thing that's happening. It's a thing that we do need to stop out before it gets into a big problem. We don't want to be like, different countries where they have problems with, school shootings and stuff like that. We don't want to be in that realm. And the only way that we're going to do that is if we have more hard-hitting conversations and more realistic conversations about these kind of stuff. So with that said, that is our first pod. How do you feel like it went?
I feel it went well. Flowed nice there, but obviously the cohesion's already there from the radio show.
Yes, 97 Kemet FM every second Sunday of every month.
97.5. And we are actually on, I would say Sunday, but this might not.
Yeah, by the time it drops, we would have already been on.
But the 27th, we're back on here, and then
it's regular programming.
Regular programming every second Sunday of the month. Mindful Men. I've enjoyed today, so hopefully this will be the first of many.
You know what? It will be the first of many. It will be. And to be fair, it's not always going to be, real serious conversations. But at some point, we're going to start talking about things like relationships, dating. Dating.
We look forward to those ones, don't we, guys?
The minefields of dating.
Yeah.
Sorry, I won't say the word dating anymore. I think they all get the point. Yes. But no, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Once again, Mindful Men, we aim to unlearn everything that we've always been taught so that we can relearn everything else so we can become better people.
Yeah. See you soon, guys.
Peace. Oh, where can they find you, Mr A2B?
A2B Therapy on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok.
Indeed. And there'll be more tags in the video and also in the bios. So when we drop this, everything will be there. The Instagram will be up and running. Just lock in, show us some support, and hopefully we can make more things like this. But for now, peace and love.
Thank you.